Do you like to live on the edge of your seat? How about on the tips of your toes? Well, what if that means never knowing which mother-in-law you're going to be dealing with daily? Are we getting Dr. Jekyll or Mr. Hyde? Let's find out today on rLounge. Mother-in-law, help! Hi everyone. I will try to make this short and fill you in with the basic details. My overall intention is just to get some advice from you all on ways I can handle this situation for myself and also how to keep it from affecting my relationship. I kind of always sense something off about my mother-in-law. At about 4 years into my relationship with my hubs, her true colors came out. At this time we were engaged. We all went out for pre-Christmas celebrations and had a really great night walking this cute Victorian Christmas village, having hot toddies and seeing all the vendors and shops. If y'all never been and live near Nevada City, California, you need to go. After that, we went to a bar and had a few more drinks and headed home. This is where things started to take a turn when mother-in-law and her boyfriend started arguing. We, Ryan, husband, his brother, Dan, and I, are just sitting in the back of the car, quietly trying to stay out of it. They finally stop, but it's definitely awkward. We finally get home and I'm ready to call it a night. We literally pull into the driveway and then my mother-in-law and her boyfriend decide they want kombuchas, so they try to convince us to come to the store with them. I tell them I'm all good and we'll see them when they get back. Dan decides to stay behind as well, so he can cook food. Ryan decides to go with them. I'm stoked to finally get some sweats on and have some space after all the arguing and head upstairs. The fam get back from the store about 20 minutes later and mother-in-law walks into the place yelling. I can hear that she is still on a good one. Next thing you know, she's yelling at Dan for cooking chanterelles we had just found and is mad he ruined them. Then she proceeds to question me as to why I decided to go home with Dan and not my husband. By the end of her rant, she basically accuses me of sleeping with him. I laugh in her face because I honestly think it's a joke. I tell her she can't be serious because that's gross and remind her that he used to date my older sister, which is how Ryan and I met. Anyway, she just keeps going on and at one point, I look at her again and laugh and she tries to punch me in the face. I block her punch out of reflex. Thank God we all train Muay Thai. And look at her like, what the F just happened, and get ready to defend myself. Daniel sees her try to lunge towards me and gets in the middle and push kicks her away from us. She keeps trying to lunge at us to fight, so he keeps feeling her away. Then she calls her 6'2" boyfriend in, big guy who weighs 200 plus pounds, to come help her, and this guy just comes in swinging. Daniel just grabs him and basically instantly puts him in a chokehold and he passes out. It sounds like a lot, but this all happened in a matter of seconds. At this point, I'm ready to leave, so I go upstairs and grab my stuff. She is yelling at all of us to get the F out of her house. We leave and head to their dad's, who luckily lives close. The next morning, she tells us to come get our stuff, and we come back to all of our stuff thrown out in the yard. She also ripped up baby photos of the boys and smashed Daniel's computer to pieces. It was awful, and I kind of was in shock. The boys meet her at a coffee shop later in hopes that they can have a civil, sober conversation. I stay in the car because I'm like, hell nah. In a nutshell, she wasn't sorry and blamed us for what happened, and had the worst things to say about me alongside a long list of ugly names. We left hurt and angry at her and basically didn't talk to her for over a year. I was content on never talking to her again because so many lines were crossed. A year later, I finally get this long text from her which felt like a genuine apology. It wasn't easy, but I chose to accept it and try to move on. It still took a few more years for me to not feel guarded around her, but she would call me often and things felt like they were getting better. Flash forward to around 2 years later. I think we have a great relationship. I even consider her a friend because she calls me all the time and we spend hours talking on the phone. She picks Ryan and I up from the airport and we hang out in downtown Sacramento for a bit, having drinks and apps. It's late and we decide to call it a night after our last drink. It was a really fun night. We even sang together with a band. On the way home, she starts talking about her friend Fletcher, whom Ryan and I both don't like. Reason being that he is an alcoholic and a lowlife. Also, during my wedding, he said very racist jokes to my mom and dad when they stayed with her. Rye brought that up to her and she refused to believe him and then started defending her friend and saying, I'm sorry you are so sensitive to that. Then started saying how my parents are pieces of crap and they deserved it. She proceeds with another rant, yelling in the car to the point where I've had enough and ask her to pull over. She agrees and then tells us to get the F out of her car and speeds off, leaving us downtown. All of our stuff in her trunk, by the way. I get a text later from her to grow the F up, LOL. We stay at my sister's and the next day go grab our stuff. Again, we hope that we can also have a calm, sober talk and that she has come to her senses. When we get there, instead, she continues to defend herself and her friend and is yelling. I'm still calm and keeping my voice neutral as hard as it is. Then she comes across the room and grabs my face and is yelling in my face, I'm sorry. But honestly, her tone was like, Shut up. I told her to back up and take her hands off me, and thank goodness she did because once again I was ready to fight her. She said extremely hurtful things about me and my family, but the most hurtful thing that sealed the deal was, "You're just my son's wife." I asked her what that meant, and she said it meant exactly how I said it. At that point, I said, "Well, I guess we are done here," and left the room and went downstairs. My husband stayed behind to further try to reason with her and calm her down. After about 20 minutes, she comes down crying and tries to hug me and tell me how good I am for her son and how she is sorry. At this point, I felt nothing after what just happened upstairs. Also, it felt more like her saying sorry for herself, if that makes sense. We left and that was that, and I haven't spoken to her since. In the meantime, though, she deleted me from her Facebook and her dad's, our grandpa, which was also so petty and rude. I'm still so angry at her and she hasn't even taken accountability. I'm at the point where I want nothing to do with her. I don't trust her. I think she's a narcissistic person who manipulates and also has some sort of grudge against me. She also might be a bit of a bigot with the whole racist crap that went down. Thank God we live out of state, but we do travel back there often for work. Reddit fam, it's a hot mess. What's your advice? I'm having a hard time too because obviously I don't want to tell my husband he can't see her, but at the same time I told him we need to hold her accountable finally and stand up to her, especially since this isn't the first time. I'm kinda hurt because last night he went to see her and stay the night at her house, and I can't help but feel some type of way about that. I also understand it's his mom and I have to give him space to have a relationship with her, but I guess it's harder when it's all still so fresh. Help. One other thing. I'm also very saddened by this and still shocked. I've always had the best relationship with my own. I'm very family oriented because I come from a big family. Honestly, family is my lifeline. I viewed her and family and a friend and even called her mom. It pains me to have this brokenness. It also just hurts because I feel betrayed. I let my guard down and forgave her all to be right back to this boat. Ugh, it's rough. Let's see what the community has to say. 0Fs to give 09 says, "Okay, it's simple. She has shown you who she truly is. Believe her. Inebriated or not, those are her true feelings and beliefs. If you and your husband are okay with no contact, stay no contact. The more you allow her back in, the more she will steamroll you and your husband's boundaries. Next time she comes at you physically, you have two options. Beat a witch bloody, call the cops and press charges. There is no reasoning with her." Pinky Flamingo wants to say, "Both you and dear husband might want to attend AITA meetings. This behavior seems unlikely to have occurred if she had been sober, and by the same token, she is the addict and you and dear husband don't want to enable her or bless her bad behavior. She should have been arrested for assault both times you described above. Being intoxicated doesn't immunize her from that. This is 1,000 times more important if you are planning to have children." Voluntold 9276 says, "My advice is you remain no contact. Tell your husband you will support whatever kind of relationship he wants to have with her, but you are absolutely done with his mother and you will never spend time with her again. I don't know if you two plan on having children, but if you are, you need to be clear with your husband that any and all future children will be 100% no contact with his mother. You can't trust her to be civil about you to them or even to be civil to them. Mother-in-law has shown you twice now that she will use violence and language to prove her point. Definitely not someone who should be around children. If dear husband doesn't 100% agree that future children are 100% no contact with his mom, do not get pregnant." TXAES Funny Time has this to say, "I understand this is all fresh and hurtful. In your shoes, I would continue no contact with her. Dear husband can have whatever relationship he wants with her. Embrace your family, biologic, and the one you make. Remember the old saying, birds of a feather flock together. Her choices and friends, who she defends against evidence, shows you the type of person who she is. She will probably do one of two things in the next few weeks or months. Love bomb you and or try to rug sweep the whole thing. Why? She wants access to any future children. However, she has shown she is not safe around children because she is not even safe around adults. She has assaulted you more than once. She drinks and drives. She throws epic tantrums. She is mean and nasty, and she refuses to take responsibility for her actions." Warple still has a quick little quip. "So, what sort of drugs is she abusing? Because that does not seem like the behavior of someone who is not out of their tree on something or other." The OP replies, "So just to give some perspective, the boyfriend in the story she dated for 13 years, shortly after she ended things with my husband's dad. They were high school sweethearts, so they were together like 18 years. Then she got with boyfriend in the story. They were super toxic in the end, and I thought pretty highly of her that she had the courage to finally end things with him because she had been saying it for almost a year or so. I feel like after the breakup though, maybe it was her late midlife crisis? I do know besides the drinking, which I feel like she basically drinks every day, she sometimes smokes weed. But one time I actually did find crystal meth in her desk drawer on accident. when I was looking for a pen. At the time, I had no idea what it was, but I had a feeling it was something because it was in a tiny bag. I Googled it, and the pics looked exactly like what I was holding in my hand. I personally never saw her use or don't know what people act like when they are high on that stuff. I also don't know if that was a one-time thing she was doing to cope with crap, but either way, it's no bueno. I will say I think it's a pretty crazy thing to have on you, and regardless, it's not a good sign for a person. She already was unstable. The OP continues, "Thanks for everyone for the advice. I truly appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be here for me. I've never had this happen by any parent figure in my life, so I'm kind of just in shell shock state right now and sad. I feel hurt by my husband going to see her, but also need to support his relationship with his family if he chooses. I'm sure over the time, things will get better. No kids at the moment, but it certainly complicates future plans until we are on the same page on mother-in-law and grandkids' relations. I think you're right to want to support your husband in the relationship he has with his mother, but you don't have to subject yourself to her illness and her behavior. Some comments seem to be true that perhaps she wouldn't have behaved that way towards you both had she not been intoxicated, but it's no excuse to be on guard around her at all times due to her instability, or worry about picking up the phone or driving around with someone who's just going to berate and abuse you. That's not okay. I think in order to protect yourself, it's safe to remain no contact, and perhaps once some time passes, you and your husband can both get some people together to have a hard conversation with her and what's best for her and her well-being. Do you have a similar relationship with one of your in-laws? Let us know in the comments below. And thank you for joining us today on rLounge. Before you go, be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. If you have something you want to say regarding today's content, share that with us in the comments below.